Hey everyone, and welcome to this video about automating partition management in Power BI. We wanted to do this video because oftentimes when dealing with fact tables that are on the larger side, we create partitions which, among other advantages, give us greater control over the data we're refreshing and refresh times. A common pattern we see when creating partitions is to break them up by month. On the screen, you can see we have a basic semantic model where we have an internet sales activity fact table, and we have partitions that are separated by month. And we have 12 partitions in total going back to December of last year. The pattern we're going to introduce in this video will work if you have more than a year's worth of data as well. But in our example, let's just imagine we want a rolling 12 months in our model. This is all great. And as you can see, as I cycle through these partitions, each query is filtering down to the appropriate time frame. So we have a query step here that just filters on July, August, September, October, etc. This approach works fine, but it requires some manual intervention each month to drop the oldest partition and add a new one for the current month. So let's jump over to the Azure portal and take a look at how we go about automating that using PowerShell. All right, now we are in the Azure portal and we're going to be using an Azure automation resource for our script. Before we get started on creating a runbook, we're going to need to install the SQL Server module, which allows us to execute XMLA queries against our semantic model. To do that, we're going to go to the modules here on the left-hand side, and we're going to go to Add a Module, and we're going to select Browse. The module we're going to want to add is called SQL Server. For runtime version, I'm going to select 5.1 and hit import. Once you hit import, it might take a couple of minutes for it to actually import into the environment. You can check the status if you search for SQL Server here. You're going to see that the status is importing, and this will change once it's completed. All right, so it looks like our module has now become available. What we need to do next is actually create a runbook. So we're going to go over here on the left and click Runbook, create a runbook. And let's just call this Update Partitions. For runbook type, we're going to select PowerShell. Runtime version, we're going to select 5.1 and hit Create. Once that's complete, you're going to see this scripting interface. The full script for this demo can be found in the GitHub link down below, so we're just going to copy and paste it into this interface. All right, so to give you an idea of what's happening in this script, the first several lines of code just basically handle the authentication. So you can see we're connecting to an Azure account. We're grabbing the application ID, secret tenant ID, and creating a credential. The next few lines of code here are basically specifying variables for the server name as well as the semantic model that we want to connect to, which in our case is this AdventureWorks demo. Down below that, on line 13, we are creating variables for our partitions. So we're grabbing today's date, and then based on that, we're doing some string manipulation to properly format them for our script. And down below that, starting at line 23, we have our XMLA query. So this is what gets sent to the Power BI model. You can see that we're referencing the variables that were defined above. So database name, partition to remove here. And then again, for the create part, we're specifying the database name, the partition to add, and then for the filtering step, we're just adding the year, month, etc. And then finally down below, we're putting all that together on line 67 with this invoke ASCMD command. You can find more documentation about this command on Microsoft's site. This gives you a really good rundown of all the parameters that this command can take. So from here, all we need to do is save this runbook. We're going to publish it. And then from the overview page, we're going to run it. So this may take a few seconds to complete. You can hit this refresh button to see what the status of it is. Once this job has completed, you're going to see that the status has changed. So we can actually go back to our tabular model now. And if we hit refresh, you're going to notice that our partitions here updated. So we no longer have a December 2022 partition that got deleted. And then now we have a December 2023 partition here. All right, so now that we have our runbook and we've confirmed that it works properly, we want to demonstrate a couple of different ways to trigger it through the web interface. So one way of doing that is by creating a schedule, which you'll find on the left-hand side here. So we're going to click on Schedules, Add a Schedule, and then we're going to call it Monthly Partition Update. And let's say we want this to begin on January 1st, want to run at 1 a.m. And we want it to recur monthly. We're going to hit create, and we're going to hit OK. So now this will automatically run at 1 a.m. on the 1st of every month starting January 1st. So another way to trigger this runbook is by creating what's called a webhook. On the left-hand side, right under Schedules, you'll see a link for webhooks, and we're going to create a new one. We'll just call this Update Partitions webhook. You want to be careful with the URL down below here. The token that this generates allows users to run this without any authentication. So you want to be mindful of that, maybe add it to your Azure Key Vault. But the whole idea here is that once this webhook's created, you can trigger this from, for example, your Azure Data Factory pipeline and use it from that interface. So that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you all learned something useful about automating partitions within Power BI to remove some of that manual effort you may be doing on a monthly basis. We'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.